Hi, my name is Mariah Patton, and today I will be reviewing Discussion Board number 6. Discussion Board number 6 reviews from two of our books, American Nations and What You Should Know About Politics But Don't. So, jumping into the discussion, I am going to review Cultural Wars, which is chapter number 9, and What You Should Know About Politics But Don't. So basically, I just want to summarize chapter 9 for you briefly. So abortion has been the biggest battleground in the cultural wars and motivating the force behind the Christian right, which was politically active, evangelistic, and Protestant and conservative Roman Catholics since the 1980s. And I found this on page 257. Americans do not support the overturning of Roe v. Wade on page 258 in this chapter. Stem cell research focuses on the possibility of life or improved life, which was on page 266. Most Americans support stem cell research, but opponents believe it is wrong to use an embryo, even one created outside of a human being, for research, and that was found on page 255. Other cultural issues included in this chapter were also same-sex marriage, and that was looked at in the 1990s, and this was on page 269. So this is just a brief overview of the topics in the chapter, which again included the cultural wars, with that being said, about abortion, stem cell research, and same-sex marriages. So whenever we look at cultural wars, how does this relate to the content found in American Nations? So basically, in American Nations, on page 270, New Netherland was expanding their city with things such as anarchist philosophers, feminists, gays, hard-drinking writers, and more. They were really wanting to improve their city, improve the things around them, and there was some issues with the church and some of the people there that didn't want to see that happen. So in American Nations on page 270, it says the desire to improve the world frequently took precedence over religious beliefs itself, especially if the church was standing in the way of progress. So basically, some of the church people were really standing in the way of the New Netherlands improving their city and expanding in different ways. And that can also relate back to the cultural wars with abortion, because the Catholic and evangelistic Protestants led a fight against abortion often and same-sex marriage, and this was found on page 269. So in both of these books, people are really trying to grow and expand with different things such as same-sex marriages, feminists, abortion, things like that. And both of them are kind of experiencing people who might go against these things, and those people have been kind of involved in the church more. Not all people in the church go against it, but a majority of them, for example, the Catholics, were going against some of this cultural war for them, and that's how I could relate the two books together. So, how does the information presented in American Nations potentially influence our approach to politics and policy as a country today? Found on 281 in American Nations, Northern Alliance campaigns for civil liberties, sexual freedom, women's rights, gay rights, and environmental protection all became divisive sectional issues, just as Dixie's promotion of creationalism, school prayer, abstinence-only sex education, abortion bans, and states' rights did. Again, that was on page 281. So basically, in American nations, again, it's just really noticing like people are gonna disagree on some of these things because we're all different. And this view over cultural wars allows us to see the impact on individuals in the past in ways that they handled it, and that can kind of allow us and influence us with our politics and our policy, to know how to handle these things in the future. Not necessarily that we're always going to get them right, but it's just important for us to know how to handle them now. So, also, people are going to disagree with one another because we all have different values. And it's important to notice that, some people aren't going to agree on these things, and that's okay. But American nations and what you should know about politics allows us to see the influence of values on, politics and policies in present time and how people are handling that. So I think it's important to understand that there are different ways that we can handle these situations, and definitely without social injustice. And hopefully in the future we can work together, even though there's going to be disagreements. And hopefully these two books can allow us to see the ways that we can handle these situations down the road. Also, so how does this relate to the NASW Code of Ethics in terms of 2 to 3 specific values and ethical principles? So the first value and ethical principle that I wanted to bring up was the value of social justice and the ethical principle of social workers challenge social injustice. Basically, I think that this relates to this value and principle because as social workers, our role will be to understand these cultural wars and ways to work through them with our clients. There's always going to be cultural wars. I believe this really reflects on knowing a need for social justice and advocating for our clients who may be experiencing social injustice in their lives just as others might have been in these two books that we had been reading. The other value that I wanted to review was dignity and worth of a person and the ethical principle of social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of a person. As social workers, we are also people who need to accept our clients for who we are and who they are. Again, everyone is different, no one is the same. And we cannot place our values or our views on our clients as social workers. We have to accept them for who they are, and know their dignity and worth as a person. It's important to keep an open mind and let our clients know their worth and who they are. So again, I think this value and this principle really just relates back to both of the books and how they really just discussed a lot of issues and cultural wars with abortion and same-sex marriage, and the stem cell research. People are going to believe certain things, and we're going to believe certain things, and we need to work to support our clients for who they are and where they are in the moment as social workers. So overall, I believe that these code of ethics can really relate back to a lot of the issues that were read in chapter 9 with cultural wars. Lastly, I will just review my references, which were or are on my PowerPoint, and you'll be able to see those again. So what you should know about politics but don't, and then also the NASW Code of Ethics and American Nations. Thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful information. Thank you.